Hello everyone, this is Harshal Desai. I am part of the editorial team at Elets Technomedia Private Limited. I welcome you all in the next edition of the Elets Innovation Talk. As you all know, Elets Innovation Talk is the series of conversations that we are doing at Elets, and where we interact with different industry leaders and understand more about their products and technologies and their solutions that they have to offer to the government and the other organization. In this series today, we have Mr. Shomiron Dasgupta. He is the Chief Executive Officer at NIF. Welcome, Mr. Dasgupta, to Elets Innovation Talk.
Thank you, Arshal. My pleasure.
Thank you. So, Mr. Dasgupta, we are really thankful to you for taking time out and to participate in the Elets
Mm.
Innovation Talk, and to have agreed to talk about the products and technologies that NIF has to offer to to different organizations. So, without taking without I talking about NIF, I would like to understand from you directly. And to begin with, we would like to understand that if you can tell us a little about the company and the offerings and the solutions of your products that you are offering to the Indian customers and to the customers globally.
Sure. So, thank you so much for the opportunity. First, I mean, this is extremely exciting, and I'm hoping all of you are safe, and our viewers over here are safe. Wishing them a lot of good health, and wishing them for their safety. Just quickly give you a background of what NIF is. NIF essentially is a cybersecurity big data platform. We're basically to cut it short, we process a lot of cybersecurity information that's coming out of operating systems, servers, firewalls, security devices, and our job is essentially just to stitch the attack, landscape together for our customers. Uh, won't be wrong if I say uh, it's our job to be able to identify the attacker in the noise. So signal to noise is essentially what we specialize in. So yeah, it's long story short. A lot of information needs to be collected. So there are lots of technologies in play. One of the major technologies in play is, apart from cybersecurity, is big data
Mhm.
uh, and analytics. So there is a lot of cybersecurity is one of the largest data sets
Okay.
available today, and I mean, in fact, it's sometimes our customers have data sets which are larger than their business volumes, right? And and then being able to provide correlation on top, analytics on top, next generation machine learning and artificial intelligence on top, to be able to identify attackers for the customers and be able to then respond to those attacks in a meaningful way is what NIF is built to do.
Right. Okay, great. Can you tell us about some recent developments and innovations that you may have come up with for the
For sure.
customers in India and for the customers across the globe?
Yeah, I think we've we've sort of path blazed a lot of innovation over the last 4 years. I think we were one of the first ones to adopt analytics as one of the main cores of detection capability. This happened in 2017. 2017 to 2019 is where we were building more and more analytics capabilities into the system. While everybody was talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, we sort of decided to wait a bit on that, uh, and figure out how the world shapes out in that space, and what kind of technologies made available. Because once you invest in a technology scope like that,
Yes.
and you put it into a product, it basically, this product goes into the bloodstream of all throughout the industry, and then you can't change a lot. So we were a little soft-footed on that part, but now we've essentially built a very comprehensive machine learning outlier detection architecture. So essentially, our job is to identify anything that is not normal, right?
Hmm.
So that we've used analytics for that, and now we are using machine learning for that, artificial intelligence to identify different kinds of alerts and connect those alerts together. So that's essentially what we are playing on. Um, our artificial intelligence models took, you need to develop these models over time so that they give you better results going forward. And until you have those mature models, you're not able to, essentially put them out in the market.
Yes.
And you understand this, that uh, all these customers that are using this platform essentially, bet their cyber presence on a product like this. So it's very, very important and a huge responsibility on us to, make sure that we have technology that works being put out.
Right.
So a lot of,
Right.
yeah. So summarizing again,
Yeah.
a lot
Please.
of machine learning is coming in right now. We're rolling out a lot of artificial intelligence based models, which are going to essentially. So in this technology background, we have a lot of alerts that come out, right?
Hmm.
And alerts are coming out. So you need also to be able to a method where you are able to, get a grasp on all these alerts and stitch them together to figure out which alerts are essentially connected.
Hmm.
So that's where we are, exploring AI as one of the key technologies that will be able to do that, like a human being would.
Indeed, I mean, artificial intelligence is any companies nowadays is making the most of artificial
Oh yeah,
intelligence, machine learnings,
yeah.
and all these stuffs. And we are seeing that even not just the private organization, not just the BFSI sector, not just the manufacturing sector,
Hmm.
but even the government has started making a huge, use of the advanced
Yeah,
technologies.
absolutely. And it's great if we can make use of it in a meaningful way. And there is a lot of opportunity out there. Lots of problems today can actually be solved with meaningful investments in AI today.
Right, 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 right. So, can you please, if I ask you, which are the three top areas where artificial intelligence has helped you a lot, if you can mention
Okay.
them?
Okay. So I think biggest area is, when you are looking at issues, right? Alerts that come out of your cybersecurity alerts that are coming out of your product. You need a human being to essentially stitch the picture together,
Right.
right? You need a human being to figure out that, hey, listen, this and A, B, and D are connected,
Yes.
right? Uh, the challenge with a human being is obviously a human being has to have enough skill, has to be paying attention all the time, right? And obviously is rare to find. The above two combinations are rare to find. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges of making, depending on human beings on such a critical life
Mm.
space today,
Mm.
where a breach would essentially mean massive business disruptions. So I think that's where AI is. We're using AI at that layer. We're not using a lot of AI
Mm.
in that, but we are using a lot of machine learning, which is in my opinion, that I mean, this world is divided, but in my opinion, is a subset of artificial intelligence, not just is not yet artificial intelligence. Um, a lot of machine learning where ML is used to, we call it ML by the way. So ML is used to identify outliers. So for instance, if a user, let's say, give you an example, if a user if an administrator is typically, there are lots of administrative tasks in an organization. So there might be some administrators who are focused on backup. There are some
Mm.
administrators who are focused on the network and connectivity bit of the administrative process. There's some administrators who create users and delete users on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Today, if a backup operator creates a user, right, I would say that, hey, listen, I know he has got access, but and he has the capability to create users, but we have not seen him create users. Is everything okay?
Hmm.
So and then around that user, you have other alerts that circle around the user. Then you know something's wrong with the user today. Either he's lost his password, or somebody's stolen his password, or he has got malicious intent. So that's essentially where we use machine learning today.
Right, right. So the overnight, digital transformation has
Mhm.
brought the emergent need to secure your critical infrastructure. This is also one important element. So can you draw some light on this and how NIF helping businesses achieve this?
Yeah, so I think our attack surface is changing, right? So I mean, uh, changed in the last 6 months, and we had absolutely no time to sort of react to that.
Hmm.
So one of the major challenges that plagued us was, in an organization, your desktops and laptops are secured by a perimeter, right? You have proper authentication systems. You have firewalls that don't let outsiders into a network. You have antivirus systems which are centrally governed, which are essentially cleaning all the laptops which are connected in the office. But the moment the office goes away, all the infrastructure that's lying in the office that was there to protect the users is pretty much useless. And these laptops are now operating outside your perimeter in your houses,
Yes.
and have no protection that they were used to earlier. So the whole dynamic of the system has changed, and I think uh, that was a major shift that we pretty much were required to do overnight, where we were required to monitor endpoints which are outside the perimeter rather than the on the inside of the perimeter, right? And also give more focus on identifying behavior patterns, because behavior patterns that were built when you were inside the perimeter
Hmm.
are different from behavior patterns which are built when you're outside the perimeter. So all those patterns that were built inside were pretty much useless. We had to relearn, re-understand, and you would see that in the first few months, the first 2 3 months, right, when the lockdown was strict, behavior patterns were different. Now again, the behavior patterns are changing. So all that, these models have to adapt, very ever so slightly on each of these spaces to make sure that they're accurate and doing the right kind of detection. So I think that has been one of the biggest challenges that we are seeing across cybersecurity. I mean, it's in the
Right.
infrastructure space. Yeah.
Right. Yes, of course. In fact, we had earlier also, I had conducted one session for
Mm.
BFSI domain where experts shared similar thoughts that now in lockdown, people have started using their own devices
So yeah,
from the locations that we are not aware of. Right. And
uncontrolled.
yes, uncontrolled. And it was a session on zero trust technologies. So that's how they mentioned that how zero trust technologies are gaining momentum nowadays. And this is not a bad word to use.
Oh
Zero
yeah,
trust technology really is something which can be considered a great approach indeed. So
absolutely. If
yeah,
we can make that work, that is going to be the future, because increasingly we you know you've seen corporate laptops have their Wi,
right.
they're USB disabled,
Hmm.
right? Uh, how much of enforcement can you actually put onto a piece of equipment or a human being, right? After a point, you will need to start assuming that the equipment is compromised, and I think that's the core of a zero trust environment. And if you're able to live with that fact, I think your infrastructure is substantially more resilient for cyber attacks than anybody else.
So NIF is into offering zero trust technologies also. Do
No,
you have?
no, no, no. We don't. So, but we absolutely do a lot of integration with zero trust technologies, a lot of SD-WAN technologies also,
Uh-huh.
a lot of VPN technologies also, and we try and figure out a way to circle around these capabilities to then layer a level of monitoring on. So
Right.
we're essentially monitoring. We're just listening to conversations and figuring out what's not right in this conversation. So
Right.
for us to be able to understand zero trust as a technology base, as or a SD-WAN technology, or even standard VPNs is very, very core. Uh, as if you don't understand that, we will not know what transaction is a good transaction versus a bad one.
Right. Moving ahead, this is just one example how the pandemic has affected the work culture across the country, across the world. In fact,
Yeah.
how has this pandemic impacted the cybersecurity industry? If you can share some inputs on this in India also, and if you can share how this has affected the industry across the group, if you can share your thought on this.
So this is a great question. You would typically be common to answer a question where how is the industry coping up, but the cybersecurity industry itself has seen two different parts. There's been an effect in growth of cybersecurity companies in business, and also we've also seen certain technologies do very well right now than versus without the pandemic. So I mean, we are one of these technologies which has seen a slowdown because uh, everything that involved a remote operations, securing the remote infrastructure kind of a scenario, those cybersecurity companies have done very well right now. Whereas for us, we are still very core to the infrastructure, and substantially large. Uh, the analytics platform is typically a very big decision that an organization needs to make, right? All the big decisions have essentially been pushed to the back burner, and the smaller decisions, or the more important decisions, I won't call them small, more important decisions of securing the remote infrastructure essentially have come to the foreground. So, and in on the business side, you'll see that has changed, but the operations in terms of how customers are essentially detecting attacks. I mean, in the previous conversation, we just spoke about that, of how our detection modality has changed, from being inside the perimeter to now having to monitor um, devices and systems and people which are outside the perimeter, right? Which have which we have very less control over. So because you have less control over, monitoring is the only best way to identify if everything's all right or not. So I think that way, that is a modus operandi change. The other thing finally is the change in how this organization has changed, right, over the last 6 months. I think that's also a phenomenal change. We've pretty much, uh, I think everybody during the pandemic has got a lot of work done.
Yes.
So all the travel time saved uh, has really positively impacted people, and the freshness with which they're able to come to their work desk. Although we've been very careful on not overdoing it and having enough energy in the tank to spend outside work, because otherwise almost everybody is going to go through a burnout in a while. I think that for all creative people, I think that's a very difficult line to come back from. So I think that's something that we've been working on. So three things, yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Now you interact with a lot of customers from different domain on regular basis, right? And you are probably can tell us how the cyber attacks trends have changed
Yeah,
during this pandemic. First,
yeah.
and second thing, are there new vulnerabilities generated by the pandemic? Some recent threats targeting enterprise, business, and probably uh, what are the security challenges that they are facing now?
Okay, so I think some of the biggest change that we are seeing in the enterprise market, at least, right, is is attacks starting being focused on the endpoint, right? And this change is not happened because of the pandemic, right? So if I could explain that landscape a little bit, um, back in 2000, the 2002 to 2007, 2008, all the attacks were focused to the server, right?
Mm.
I mean, finally, let me just simplify it: server and client, right? I mean, most of our
Yes.
conversations are client-server conversations, right? So earlier we were all focused on preventing attacks on the server, right? And all these attacks were hitting servers earlier. So we were all focused on defending the data center, right? And then eventually we figured that the data center is almost become bulletproof, and you are able to protect the data center very well. What happened after that was people started focusing on the client. The
Mm.
client that was accessing the data center, right, became a part of the vulnerability, because the client also had very important secrets which were required to unlock the lock at the data center level. So, and
Yes.
if since that information was available at the client became an easier target to break in, right? And plus, it had a human being that could be fooled. So I think that after about 2011, 2012, you saw all the attacks starting to focus on clients and not the server, right? And
Mm.
therefore, endpoint protection became a very, very important domain for us. Now, and what we did with the endpoint protection space was we covered it with defenses. While the laptop was in office, we basically sealed it with detection systems and firewalls and authentication systems and monitoring systems, right? We sealed the entire space around the laptop or the desktop or the workstation of the human being. And we ensured that when this laptop went home, pretty much could not access anything outside in the internet. The person could not put a pen drive to make it work. So all that we did to make sure that it was hardened. Now imagine that life has changed, and the laptop outside the perimeter has become a normal,
Yes.
right? With the threats on the endpoint and the laptops having no security, or the users having no security, endpoints having no security, endpoint threats have become really, really active again.
Right.
So this is the space in which some of the biggest uh, you know secret stealing is essentially happening right now, because that's the window of opportunity for everyone.
Right.
uh, we've not had the time to catch up. So I think that's what the pandemic has done to us.
Yes. Indeed.
I mean, it's a generic answer, but that's
Huh.
that's essentially all the you talk about all the APT attacks or the
Anything that you would like to mention in context to BFSI domain?
yeah, I mean BFSI. So I mean, in India, right? There are threat actors which are key, right? Which are available, which were focused on the BFSI domain itself, right? Have now a open playing field, right? Because the only challenge that they have had is they have not been able to identify. So, uh, so this is a counterproductive part of side of the attacker side of the story. Uh, when they were all in the enterprise network, right? It was easy to identify that, hey, this is the bank, and the users inside the bank are sitting here, right? I could actually say that this all these bankers are sitting in this building, right? So it was easy to identify who was a banker. Now, when everybody went home, it's not easy to identify who's a banker, right? So it is more difficult to target a bank or a financial institution through the endpoint. Although the endpoints are vulnerable, but you don't know where they are. So
Right.
a lot of scatter attacks is essentially what's happening right now. It's like general land grabbing, right? Which is going on. They're not able to identify who's who, living in this complex or living on this IP address. We'll just break in and then we'll figure out if this is somebody important. So essentially, that's what's going on.
Right. Right. Next, there's a lot of talk about the importance of being proactive when it comes to cybersecurity.
Sure.
However, we have seen that this is not an easy step and is a whole new challenge in itself, right? So, what measures would you suggest as a proactive for enterprise and businesses to adopt in order to keep their data and infrastructure secure, and especially when your data and your users can be anywhere? So, a little bit you have explained earlier, but I'll request you to share some more thought on this.
I think, yeah. I mean, honestly, this space is still evolving, right? And one of the most promising technologies, like we just spoke about, is zero trust technologies, where you're essentially assuming that the endpoint, which is not under our control, is going to be compromised at some point or is already compromised, right? And how do you take data out of that and bring it to your source, right? So secrets don't actually lie on the laptop. Word documents don't lie on the laptop. These Excel sheets and databases don't lie on the laptop, but are centrally placed where users can essentially log in and make use of this platform. So the only risk to that is a lot of information is just centrally available. It can be, you can pot shoot this information base, but of course there are technologies which are there to essentially safeguard that. That's still central, right? Like we said, back before, where we were preventing attacks on the data center, that's we obviously succeeded in that. That's why people moved off the data center onto the endpoint systems, right? So we will, that that world is changing again. We are going to go back to data center driven or cloud driven technologies, which are going to be central, where data is going to be available centrally and not locally. So
Yes.
for instance, life has changed, right? You don't have tons and tons of movies lying on your computer anymore. You're watching movies on Netflix. You're streaming that. You don't have
Yes.
music lying on your laptop anymore. So
Yes.
today, uh, that space has changed. The Our capability of working offline and the method in which we are doing so has also got to change a bit. So I think with that, you will be able to prevent a lot of data theft that goes off endpoints.
That's great. That's great, Mr.
I don't know if
Dasgupta.
I make sense.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. There's a tough competition out there in the market. How are you standing out?
Oh yeah, I have the best competitors in the space. I think that's
Yes.
so.
So
I think that's very encouraging. In fact, we get a lot of energy from the competition that we face. Uh, we and it's very encouraging for us to go up against giants and stalwarts, which we ourselves respect. I mean, for instance, an IBM is a great organization. It's an institution, right? And if I have to compete against that, there is no love lost. I mean, I'm very happy and encouraged to compete with these kind of giants. Uh, we basically need to keep our head down and focus on building the best technology that can help users go through the cybersecurity journey easily. And if we are able to do that and be honest with that, um, and not, I think one of the key things that we've succeeded in doing is building technology in a cloakroom where you don't know what's around, right? And you don't know what others are using and how they're using it. So in other words, you're not trying to copy somebody else's capability, but build your own capability using the knowledge that you have, and in a way that you keep your users in the center. If you're able to do that, I'm sure you will be able to come up with some very key specific capabilities which will help users and which competition is not able to provide. So I think that's how we do it. The only way we can compete, we cannot compete on marketing budgets. We cannot compete on number of salespeople on the ground. The only way we can compete in is building better technology, usable technology which directly impacts the customer. Right. So I mean, that's the only way we've got to be doing it.
Yes. How big is the team? If you can share some
Oh, fantastic!
numbers.
So we've come from 18 to 100. We're exactly 100 right now. 18 to 100 in about 22 months.
Right. Right.
Right.
2019.
Actually, 18 months, but yeah, count 22. It's about
So
right now.
if you talk about the revenue, if I'm not wrong, 2019 was a great year for NIF, right? What
Yeah,
are
and
your
then it followed. We have a following 2020 after that.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
right.
Uh,
So 2019 was good. This would be my last two questions, not the least for the day. What are your expansion plans, and how you are strategizing to take this revenue to the next level?
okay. So I think one of the key action points is we're very worried about how many customers are coming to us to ask for the product.
Hmm.
What we are currently doing is we are going to customers to talk about the product. Customers aren't coming to us to take the product from us. I think that's the mindset that we're working on, trying to change that, where we figure out ways in which customers um, understand who you are and what you do, and essentially come and buy the product from you rather than you going and selling the product. And then that's the best way. You could not just sell locally but also globally. So I think that is there's some strategies that we are trying to adopt. Right,
Hmm.
doing a lot of reading on uh, how the world essentially have you've seen different case studies of smaller players elevating themselves without a lot of resources. We are one of those kind of scenarios because we are one of the 17, 18 in the sim space, 17, 18 vendors in the sim space. We're 14, 15 in rank. We're the only vendor that is not funded. We're still bootstrapped. And with our given resources, how do you elevate yourself in the ranking? Essentially, that's the big thought process that's currently in the in the in the in the yeah in the think tank.
Right. Great conversation, Mr. Dasgupta, and we wish you all the luck for your future endeavors. So this is all from our side. Anything else that you would like to add as a concluding remark?
Well, I mean, just the best thing to say right now is yeah, like cyber threat, the virus is invisible,
Yeah.
right? So please stay safe. I think in my favorite saying in Hindi is "Sar Salamat to Pagdi Pachas,"
Yes.
right?
That's right. That's
So
right.
if you're able to, I think if you're able to hop over this hurdle, I think there's life waiting for us. I think just stay safe, everybody, and wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dasgupta, Chief Executive Officer at NIF. Thank you so much for taking time out today for this conversation, and we are
My
thankful.
pleasure. My
Yeah,
pleasure. Thank you so
and
much.
thank you, thank you. So with this, we formally end today's edition of Elets Innovation Talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.